Assalamualaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma. Okay, now children, how is everyone? Hope that you all are well. Today, as per our promise, we are going to learn how to solve scenario-based question. So be ready with your writing material. Note down the important points. Do not forget. Follow the instructions. Okay, may I start now? Okay, that's wonderful. Before we proceed to the actual question, let's talk about that what we need to know in order to score full marks or something good in your last question, scenario-based question. Normally it is, students are very worried about this question, but remember, you can actually score very easily if you follow these tips which I'm giving you today. Remember and follow, fine. I hope that we remember that our paper is of 1 hour 45 minutes and it is suggested by me as well as the other teachers, also the examiners also, that you have to reserve your 1 hour for your other questions and do not move on to the scenario-based question in the beginning. Start attempting from question number 1 and go on. And once you are done with all the questions, then move on to scenario-based question and do not take more than 30 minutes for completing the entire question. And then the rest of the 15 minutes should be for revision of the entire paper. That is a suggestion. Now, for this scenario-based question, basically there are two things that we need to remember. The first thing is we have to actually follow, and our first objective is assessment objective 2, that is AO2, and here the students are assessed that are they able to apply the knowledge and understanding of the principles and concepts of computer science to a given context, including the analysis and design of computational or programming problems. Now, this is what do they want the students to know? The students should be able to use at least one programming technique. And with this, what they mean is the students should be able to properly use counting, maximum, minimum, totaling, whichever is present in the question, they have to understand it first and use it appropriately. Similarly, if there is any selection that is required, for example, if or case, if there is any iteration that is needed, a loop, appropriate loop, then basically you are going to score. Besides this, appropriate input as well as the proper output, definitely with the messages, with the prompts. So if you have followed these instructions properly, you have written the answer in the right order, then definitely you will be able to score maximum of 9 marks for this AO2. Clear? If you have followed the way we have been teaching you, then you will definitely be able to score the full marks in this assessment objective. Now, one more thing is you need to, some data has been stored but not appropriately. That is what is for then you will score one or 2 or 3 marks early. But in order to score full marks, what else you need to see is the data structures that you have chosen are appropriate and store all the data that is required. See, this is what is going to be the data structures used, store all the data that is required by the scenario. So you need to, first of all, spend a little time in comprehending the whole question, because remember, this is unseen. When you, we don't know whether what will be given in your paper. So for that reason, we can only train you, and you have to use this training in order to score good marks, okay? So is AO2 how to score, the proper use of selection statement, the proper use of iteration, when to use the for do, when do we use repeat until, when do we use while. If this is very much clear, then definitely you will be able to score. Counting, totaling, if there is any maximum or minimum to be handled, then that also. Right use of input, the right use of output, the proper sequence, everything should be considered in order to score full marks. May I move on to the next topic? May I move on to the further? Any questions? Okay, that's wonderful. Now let's move on to the next thing. Assessment objective 3. What we need to see here is the students can easily score again the marks if they have, actually this is our assessment objective 3. The maximum marks are 6. So you can see 9 plus 6 makes 15. Now, what the students should be careful about. The program has been fully commented. Now, this is what we have been training you, and you will be applying it, inshallah, in this scenario-based question. Suitable identifiers. Identifiers means the variables, the constants, whichever thing you have used, with the names meaningful to the purpose have been used throughout. Remember meaningful names. Do not take a variable or a constant that doesn't depict its nature, that doesn't depict its what is coming, what is stored there. See, this is what we have been doing from day one. So please follow the same so that you are able to score 6 marks. The program is in a logical order. For example, what does this mean? What do they expect the students to do here? If, for example, there is a small task or a subtask that is dealing with input, process, and output, then definitely you need to follow the right order, that inputs will be coming first. The appropriate processing will be done in the next order, and then you are going to output the results. So please follow these 3 stages, and then only you are going to score the marks. The solution is accurate. Remember, a lot of times students say that we have written everything correct and still we didn't score. So it might be because they didn't follow the logical order, or maybe they didn't write down the answer accurately. The solution was inappropriate, was incorrect. So you need to actually follow these things. And before you proceed to the writing space, always make a small chart for your own self. Just chart your own variables, the whole concepts that are being used, the way we have been telling you, and then start doing the work. The solution meets all the requirements. Remember, the moment you have done any of the requirements, please do tick, so that you yourself are aware that you have followed the instructions and you have done all the tasks the way that is being asked in the question paper. So this is, in this manner, you have written the right identifiers, you've written the program in the right order, the solution is accurate, the meaningful names are being used, and you are meeting all the requirements mentioned in the question paper, in the question, then definitely you are going to score 6 out of 6 in this assessment objective 3. Clear? May I move on to the question actually? Okay. Wonderful. Now this is scenario-based question that was in specimen paper 2A. Let's read the question first. The 1D array student name contains the name of students in a class. Now you can see the first array is your student name. As you can see, the first array is student name. It contains the name of students in a class. The 2D array, now 2D array is your student mark. Now this is your 2D array. And just for the purpose of simplicity, I have mentioned it here so that you can comprehend that student name is the array to store student's name. and the student's marks are stored in a 2D array, two-dimensional array. This 2D array student mark contains the mark for each subject for each student. The position of each student's data in the two arrays is the same. Now remember, this is very, very important that definitely if a student is positioned at position number 10 and his name is Abdullah, so definitely all the details, all the marks are for Abdullah. It's not possible that you have some other subject, some other student's marks along with the name. And that makes sense. The variable class size contains the number of students in the class. So you can see here the class size, that is again value that may change, that may vary from situation to situation. Maybe one subject, there are lesser number, maybe in one class there are lesser students, and in another class there can be more students. So just to make your program a more user-friendly program, what they have done is they have taken a variable by the name class size, and it contains the number of students in the class. Any questions till now? We are clear about the use of two arrays. The first one is student name, that is a 1D array, and the student mark, another array, that is a 2D array that contains the marks obtained by student in each subject. Okay? And now the variable subject NO contains the number of subjects studied. All students studied the same number of subjects. That is very important. The number of subjects taken by all students of the class is the same. By the way, in this case, how many subjects? Just as an example, what have I taken here? I've taken 4 subjects. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 4 subjects are being taken just as an example to make you comprehend the whole concept. And now we are going to move further. Any questions? May I move ahead? The arrays and variables have already been set up and the data stored. Now, please just read the instruction. It says very clearly the arrays and variables have already been set up and the data stored. So it means I don't have to go for any inputs, isn't it? Input is not needed. Yes, that's great. So from here, you will start putting up your own working and you will say, fine, input is not needed because inputs are already being, you can see for yourself, the arrays and variables have already been set up and they have been storing the data also. Students are awarded a grade based on their average mark. Now, greater than or equal to 70 is going to be a grade awarded distinction. Greater than or equal to 55 and less than 70, this is the range, then he will score a merit. Will be the grade will be a merit one. Greater than or equal to 40 and less than 55, the grade is going to be pass. Less than 40 is going to be fail. So this is the criteria given to you. And from here, what do you deduce actually? This is going to be condition, and you can handle it with definitely an if or a case. Perfect, that's great. So here you can see for yourself that you can use either a case statement or you can use if statement. Any of these will be helpful. Now, this is how you'll start doing your work. Any questions? Okay, that's wonderful. Write a program that meets the following requirements. Now, these are the requirements. Requirement number 1, calculates the combined total marks for each student for all their subjects. Now, this is the first requirement that we have to find out, calculate the combined total marks for each student for all their subjects. Like, if I say for this one, it means what we want is we need to find out the sum of all the score, all the marks that he has scored, Ali Abdullah has scored, like 97 plus 56 plus 77 plus 89. So which concept strikes your mind? Just recall the 4 basic techniques that we have been talking about. Which technique is supposed to be used here? That's wonderful. That's totaling. So what you will do is you will just underline this, write down for your own self, so that you know that here the technique of totaling will be used. And definitely calculate the average mark for each student for all their subjects. Round it to the nearest whole number. Please remember that for this, they have given you a hint that you can have to use a library routine. You don't have to worry at all. Just recall the library routines and your work is done for you, isn't it? Any questions? Student 1, till the class size, we are going to add all the total that all the marks that the students have scored, and we are going to find out the total for each child, for each student. And once we are done with the totaling, then we have to calculate the average mark for each student for all their subjects and round it to the nearest whole number. Clear? Now, output for each student. Now, this is the calculation phase. No input is needed. Some sort of processing is needed here. And then definitely we have to go for the calculation. Output for each student, name. Definitely name is going to come from the array. Combined total marks that we have calculated. Average mark that is going to be again calculated. And the grade awarded. For this, we are going to refer to this table and we'll find out that which grade the student has been awarded. The student has been awarded which grade. Calculates, stores, and outputs the number of distinctions, merits, passes, and fails for the whole class. Now see, calculates, stores, and outputs the number of distinctions. It means here I need to have which concept? The number of distinctions, merits, passes, and fails. That's great. Wonderful, Ari. It will be the concept of counting. So here you have identified the concepts. You know that combined total marks means totaling. You wrote it here. Then calculate and store and output. Calculate, store, and output the number of distinctions, the number of merits, the total passes, and the total failures. So definitely here the concept of counting is going to be used. You must use pseudocode or program code and add comments to explain how your code works. See, here they are giving you a hint that you have to write down the comments. Do not forget that definitely your code becomes more meaningful, becomes more user-friendly. And if anyone is well-versed with any of the programming languages, then you are allowed to write down the program code as also. I mean, up to you. You're okay with pseudocode, perfect. But if some student is more comfortable about the program, he has got good know-how, good grip on any of the programming languages, then it's perfectly okay that he uses the program code. But remember, there's no computer available, so you have to have a very good grip so that no mistake is made in your program code. You do not need to initialize the data in the array. Now, this is what is given to do not initialize the data in the array. The data is already being stored. Any questions in this whole discussion? Are we all clear? Okay, that's wonderful. Now, just to make from here, what we have deduced is we have found that we need one variable for total. That is for this one. I need one more variable for average mark. And then I need 4 more variables to hold the total distinctions, the total merits, the total passes, and the total failures. So from here, we have found that which other variables do I need, and wherever they are needed to be initialized, we'll talk about it, and we'll proceed to our actual pseudocode. Please, any queries, ask before we move on to the actual pseudocode. We are clear that we have 2 arrays given. The data stored in these 2 arrays. We have to just go for the awarding of the student a grade, and we have to calculate the total marks obtained. We have to calculate the average mark obtained by each child. We have to display output for each student, the name, the marks scored, the total marks that he has scored, the average mark, and the grade awarded. Any questions? Okay, that's wonderful. Now let's move on to our actual thing. Be clear. You have a query, please do raise your concern, and we are going to move on to our code. Now, first thing is you have to declare the variables. So you can see, just to make you understand, it's color coded with red. So you can see all the red markings are your comments. So just remember, wherever you are mentioning the basic thing, you will start with a comment, that your code becomes more readable. Declaring the variables. Here the keyword is declare, subject counter, student counter, total, distinction NO, merit NO, pass NO, fail NO as integer. So remember again, with the one in one line we can form different declarations. That's perfectly okay. Then declare average mark, that is a real value. Now, any questions regarding the declaration phase? I mean, you do it, that's perfectly okay for all the variables that you are using. And now let's move on to the initializing. Here you can say initializing means that we have to give initial value. So for this, we have just learned the distinction NO is the total distinctions. Merit NO is going to be for total merits. Pass NO is going to be for total passes. Fail NO is going to be for how many students have failed. And they all are initialized with a 0. Remember, counting variables are initialized with a 0, isn't it? So if you have any query regarding counting, please do watch the video that is dealing with counting concept also. There's a video for totaling concept also. So just have your concepts clear so that you are able to handle every single question yourself. Now, after we are done with the declarations and the initializing process, the next one is your programming techniques that is used here for iteration, selection, totaling, counting, and outputs. Now, within a line, you can mention all the concepts that are being used, or if you want, you can again mention in separate lines, like where the outputs are being handled, where the definitely iteration and selection go together. And definitely inside this, we are going to do totaling also. So I suggest that you mention it all together, just with and remember the use of your what? Double. Please do not forget that what you need to use is, this is the symbol for your comments. Okay. Now let's move on to the basic thing. Since we have the students stored in class size, so we have the one loop for student counter equals to 1 to class size. Inside this student counter loop, inside this this outer loop, we are initializing the total variable with a 0. And reason is we have to find out the total of each student of the class. So for this reason, what are we doing is, we are first of all starting our loop student counter from 1 to class size. This is my outer loop. Inside this outer loop, we have a variable initialized here, so that the moment it's going to be okay, now definitely I'll explain it to you once we are going to move on to the second situation. But assume it's the first student whose input is input is already stored. Yes, definitely. We are just calculating the total marks and the average marks for the first student. And inside this, we are initializing the variable total with a 0. For subject counter equals to 1 to subject NO. Here, just to make you comprehend, what I have done is, for student number 1, there are 1, 2, 3, and 4. It means subject NO is holding the value 4 in our case. I mean, just to make you comprehend, I'm doing it. Please remember that subject NO is a variable. So we are just using the same variable for our work. Then definitely the loop will work. This is my inner loop. Please remember, this is my inner loop, and the inner loop will work how many times? 4 times. Fine. And then inside this inner loop, you are going to calculate total just by using the same simple concept. Total equals to total plus student mark. And then you can see student mark will be student counter, comma, subject counter. So first time, the value of student counter is 1 and the value of student counter is also 1. So in this manner, 1, 1, first student, first subject, that will be added and stored back in the variable total. And next subject counter will take it back to the for loop. You can see the inner loop for subject counter. And now it will be doing the second round. The second value will be now input. Now, after that, what you can see, again, I'm sorry, it's not input, it is going to be calculated. Now, second value is going to be added because now the student counter is the same 1, but it will be 1, 2. So it means for the first student, his marks, second marks will be added and they will be stored again with the previous total added back to total. It's the same concept. So don't get worried at all, please. It's the same. The only change is the use of your 2D array. So do not get confused at what is 2D array. It's the simple application that you have already learned and you are going to work on it. Fine? No worries. And then output. Now, okay. In this manner, you have calculated the total of all the 4 subjects. And once the loop is over for the first student, 4 subject marks, then you can simply move on to the next line where average mark is going to be calculated. And you can see the use of round. Round total upon subject NO. So definitely this is a method through which you can simply find out, round it to the nearest whole number. Any questions? Are you clear? Now, once we are done with this one, we can see that average is calculated. It's held for student number 1 and it's stored in the variable average mark. And now we are going to use output and we are going to use output name, comma student name. Again, the messages name, then student name, student counter, definitely the first student, since the subject counter has worked 4 times, but student counter is the same for student number 1. So it will be displayed all the values, his name, his total mark, his average mark, everything will be just displayed. Once we are done with this one, now you can see one thing that was left was awarding the grade as well as finding out that where is he falling. So here, what have we done is just the way I told you that you can use it with if or you can use it with case. They both are allowed because it's again a condition. So here, just to make you comprehend, what I have done is I have written it with a different color code. You can see for yourself just to make you understand that if we are just checking the value of average mark, if average mark is greater than or equal to 70, then we are just going for distinction, output grade is distinction, along with adding his value in the distinction NO. So variable distinction NO that was initialized to the 0 in the beginning is going to be, the counting concept is going to be used here, +1. Distinction NO equals to distinction NO +1. Isn't it simple? Else if average mark is greater than or equal to 55, then merit NO equals to merit NO +1, output, the grade is merit. Else if average mark greater than or equals to 40, then pass NO equals to pass NO +1, output, grade pass. Else, now you can see if all the above conditions are false, the student has not scored above 70 or equal to 70. He has not been able to score 55 or above. He hasn't scored 40 or above. Then definitely, what does it indicate? He has unluckily failed. So what will happen? If all the above conditions are false, then this will land to the last else and fail NO equals to fail NO +1 and the output of grade as failed will be then done and then end if. And please see the placement of end if. That is very, very important for you to comprehend and remember the indentation. That's going to be very, very, very important. And you can see just below if the last if we have end if, and then below the second last if we have another end if, and the first if is ended in the end. And then we are using next student counter. So once the loop has been the loop has run for the first student. It is able to find out the total for student number 1, and his total is calculated, his average is calculated, output stage is over. We are done with the output of name, the marks, the total marks, the average marks, and even we have output the grade also. Along with that, what else we have done is we have also calculated that where is he, can say where is he falling? Is he a distinction holder or a merit holder or just a pass or unluckily a failure? Fine. So for student number 1, we are done with the whole process. So next subject student counter will send it back to the for loop, that was the outer loop. And now the value of student counter will become 2. In this manner, the same process that was done for student number 1 will be repeated for student number 2. And here you can see the use of total equals to 0 here. Finally, I hope that now you are very much clear about that why is the total initialized here? Why not outside? So you need to be very cautious where to do what. Total equals to 0 is initialized once again. I mean, you can see for yourself that it's going to be initialized right now. And for student number 2, it's going to be the same process repeated. All the 4 subjects that he has taken, just like the student number 1, is going to be repeated for student number 2. The total marks are going to be recalculated, and then it will be over for the calculation of total. Average will be calculated once again for student number 2. Output, name, his total, his average marks. Then again, the same process of calculation of his grade and the distinction, where is he falling, the display of grade, and where is he falling, a distinction holder or a merit or a pass or a failure. That will be done for student number 2. In this manner, all the students who are present in the class, and this is stored in the variable class size, the process will be repeated, and you are going to be displaying all the students' names, their marks, their average marks, and their grade. Now, what is left? We are done with a few now this is what you need to do. The moment you have done any of the requirement, please do tick. Requirement 1, tick, fine, I'm done with requirement number 1. Requirement number 2, done. Requirement number 2 is done, tick. In this manner, you will be able to remember also that what am I left and what is done. Okay, please note down these steps so that you are confident in your answers and you are not making any mistake at all. Fine? Any questions till now? What is left? Definitely the total distinctions, the total merits, the total passes, and the total failures. So that is done outside the loop. That's wonderful. By the way, if I do it inside the loop, what will happen? Will it be a good idea? Definitely not. That's great, Ali. It is needed only once. That is why it will be outside the loop. And we are going to have, once the whole data is displayed for the students, all the students of the class, then in the end, we'll find out the way we have normally, that how many students have scored a distinction, how many students have scored a merit or a pass, or they have failed. So in the same manner, all the values will be displayed in the end, and now we are done with our work. Now you can just relax that you have done the work. Any questions? Please go through it once again. If you have a query, then you can ask. None? Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, but still, okay, now, yes, Ahmed, very correct. That you can use it you can use else if also, perfectly okay. There is no harm in using else if, because again, definitely Python is using elif. You have learned and you know it, so it's perfectly okay if you're using else if, perfectly okay. Or you can practice it with case also. Understood? Now, this is just a very simple, I can say, explanation of how to handle scenario-based question. So inshallah, we'll come with more, you can say, in just your very simple explanation, very simple solution to the problem. Inshallah, I'll talk about how to handle it in some other complex way also. But for today, this is just the beginning. So just to give you confidence that it's very easy to handle the scenario-based question the way we have taught you, the way you have learned the pseudocode writing. So apply the same principle and do not forget to do what? To finish it within 30 minutes. For this, you need to have a very good practice of your pseudocode writing. Okay? Okay, now, Jazakallah khairan kaseera for being a part of the learning journey. Please share with your friends and family, join the community so that you are able to get the latest updates of the latest videos that are coming. Stay tuned.